would like, if I may, to take you on a strange journey.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Real Estate Realities with the Rebel Broker. My name's Robert Whitelaw, and I am the Rebel Broker. Licensed real estate broker in the state of California, member of the National Association of Realtors. But please don't hold that against me. I hope everyone had a great weekend. I think I'm pretty much coming down with something. So we'll see how far I can get in this for today's show. We're going to cover an interesting topic today. These are going to be which home improvements offer the highest return on investment in 2017. So that'll be a good one. That'll be a great one for folks that are looking to do flips. Also folks that are looking just to make the right changes in the right order, maybe to their own property. Maybe you're not thinking about selling right away. Maybe it's a little bit down the road, but there's improvements you want to make on that pathway. This will help you maybe discern where the right place is to spend your money. Of course, the best way to get in contact with me is through the website. That's at therebelbroker.com. From there, you can check in by clicking the contact menu item, and that'll take you to a form to reach out to me. You can also click the little red button at the top of the page titled Take the Survey to Support the Show. By doing that and entering the same email address both times you're asked and answering a handful of questions, you're not only helping the show, but you're also entering yourself into the drawing for a $50 Amazon gift card, which we will be handing out at the beginning of February. We've already handed this out 4 previous months for a grand total of $200. Congratulations to the folks who've won that money. And good luck to those who are registering right now to take a chance on potentially winning that $50 next month. All right, so let's jump in. And this is something that's obviously near and dear to my heart. I am currently in the process of making modifications to my property to give me the highest return on investment myself. And I'm finding that in the math I'm doing, now, of course, this is going to depend. I'm still in the mode where I'm getting quotes and things like that. And actually, next week will be the big week of quotes. But my goal is not to make some number below what I spent on these improvements. It doesn't make any sense to do it that way. My goal is to make improvements that net me more than what I spent on them. And of course, whenever you're making these calculations, it's important to understand that there are other things that have a less tangible monetary value. For instance, while it may only in cash terms at the end of the escrow get you 80 or 90% of what you spent, you have to try and factor in how much longer it would have taken you to sell that home if you hadn't made the improvements. What would have been your holding costs? And on top of that, I honestly think that if you assess your property correctly, you're going to be able to do some of these in a way that you end up making more than you spend. So let's go ahead and jump right in. They have several different lists here, a couple of different price point opinions on it. So we'll go ahead and take a look at these and maybe offer a little bit of feedback as we go. Let's see. On a national scale, the top 5 projects with the greatest return on investment in the report's mid-range cost category are, and this is Rice Media is reporting this. But you know what? I'll also include the original report that they're extrapolating this from. And this comes to us from remodeling.hw.net. And it kind of gives some interesting breakdowns in costs, all kinds of stuff. So you can go to your region and get more insights into these numbers. So what's also interesting is that an awful lot of these it'll also give an indication of what the change is versus 2016. So make sure to check that out. It's a great way to calibrate yourself to what you're investing in. The first one on the list for the mid-range cost category. Before we jump into that, though, let me give you a little bit of a rundown here. Recent and long-term trends continued. Curb appeal projects like changes to doors, windows, and siding garnered a higher return on investment than work done inside the home. Replacement projects like doors or windows scored higher among real estate pros than did remodels. And remember, this is an averaged out nationwide thing. If you have a home and it is clear that the single weakest thing in your home is your kitchen, well, then for your specific situation, the kitchen is clearly going to be where you're going to want to spend some time. And so much of this can be calibrated in terms of you understanding what it is you have to offer by checking out other properties that would be competitors of yours in your marketplace. So and I've done this, and my advantage is I tend to view every property that comes into the market where I live. But do this in your area. There should be plenty of opportunities with open houses and whatnot. Find other homes with the same number of bedrooms and baths that are currently on the market in your area and see what they have to offer at their price point. Because remember, you're going to be competing there. And if you've got an old, sort of worn out kitchen or master bathroom, or there's other things about your home that aren't measuring up compared to the competition, those are things you're going to want to address. One of the big things from my house was there were several elements of the home that really just screamed 1970s. My kitchen was a good example. A couple of other smaller things that were relatively inexpensive to replace that have given the home a more modern feeling. An example would be there was a ceiling fan in the living room, and the fan just was a perfect example of the kind of thing folks installed in the late 70s and early 80s. So I updated that with a very modern looking, or I'm about to update it with a very modern looking ceiling fan. And those are things people are going to tend to notice. So you can do things that aren't going to break the bank, that are going to at least help to nudge the perceptions of your property more in the direction that you want them to go. But let's go ahead and jump in and look at this list. Now, as I mentioned a minute ago, this is a national scale, top 5 projects with the greatest return on investment in the report's mid-range cost category. Number 1, attic insulation with 107.7 return on investment. The average cost was $1,343. Average resale value, $1,446. I'm actually kind of surprised with this one, simply because I have never had a client decide to buy or not buy a property based on information they got relating to insulation. I would guess maybe this plays a much bigger part in areas where that's a bigger issue. Here in California, we don't get snowed in. We very rarely have more than a couple of weeks each year that's an extreme of one or the other, whether we're talking cold or heat. So make sure to take into account your region. If you have a region that's dominated by snow in the wintertime where you are freezing cold for months, well, clearly that's going to hold a lot more value in those areas than it is in other areas like Florida. Or in Florida and Texas, it would be important to keep in the cool air, right? So just make sure you're understanding the context. Don't look at a number like this and then jump in and assume that's what you should do. Number 2, entry door replacement steel with a 90.7% return on investment. The average cost $1,413. Average resale value $1,282. Number 3, manufactured stone veneer with an 89.4% return on investment. Average cost $7,851 with an average resale of $7,019. A minor kitchen remodel. It gets 80.2% return on investment with an average cost of $20,830 with an average resale value of $16,699. Garage door replacement, 76.9% return on investment, average cost $1,749, average resale value $1,345. Now, I have a slightly different opinion on garage door replacement. I would actually more often push for that if a garage door is already in relatively bad shape or is relatively dated. Why? What's interesting about most American homes is that the biggest thing that you see on the front of that house is that giant garage door. And it also is one of the most neglected elements of a house when people are trying to resell. Most people don't even think about replacing that garage door. And I think from a curb appeal standpoint, and even from a standpoint of encouraging folks to like your home more, oftentimes if you ask them after the fact, what was it, that really got you interested in this home? I think that this is one of those things that can have much more of a subconscious effect. When you have something attractive for a garage door, I think that makes much more of a difference. Now, when they drive up, I think folks will notice it, but that positive impression of the home, I think, carries on, particularly if you're someone who also then carries through with similar sorts of improvements on the rest of the property. Now, that takes care of the mid-range. Let's look at the top 5 projects with the highest return on investment in the report's upscale cost category. Now, they put at number 1 a garage door replacement with an 85% return on investment, which is a higher return on investment than the garage door replacement in the mid-range. Average cost $3,304. Average resale value $2,810. Number 2, entry door replacement fiberglass with a 77.8% return on investment. Average cost $3,276. Average resale value $2,550. Remember, I'm someone who also will tend to focus on things that there is no question that someone who is going to buy your house is going to encounter. You can make the argument maybe that they're not going to notice every light switch panel in every room or look too deeply into each and every closet, but every single buyer is going to come through that front door. If that front door is dented, banged up, dinged, if it doesn't close just right, if the jamb is cracked, if it's not painted attractively, anything about that door that's negative, and one thing that's always stunned me is homes that are for sale, and this happens far more frequently than you would think. I go to get the key from the lockbox, right? As a real estate agent, I have this magical key, an electronic key that opens up a lockbox for me to access the keys to the home. Then I go to the front door of the home, and the keys to open the front door are super finicky about getting open, right? And the last thing that you want is for you to have a front door that is causing a delay on the buyers getting into the home because the deadbolt doesn't work quite right, or the lock in the doorknob itself doesn't work quite right. And what's really funny is this is such a cheap fix. This is literally a Home Depot visit with 20 minutes back at the home, replacing these locks so that they just work smoothly as expected. There should be nothing funky about getting in and out of the front door of a house. And all you're doing is guaranteeing that the very first impression they have once they have looked at the front of the house is a negative one if the front door isn't living up to some very basic standards. Okay. Next on our list, window replacement, vinyl, 73.9% return on investment. Average cost, $15,282. Average resale value, $11,286. That's been a big one for me. I have gigantic windows in the front of my house. I think I've mentioned this on the show before. So I had folks come out and do an estimate to replace every window throughout the house, including these ones that basically take the entire front of the house from the bottom of the first floor to the top of the second floor, and ended up just replacing those giant windows because those are the ones that make the most impression from the curb. But it's no small expense, and you need to make sure you're doing it wisely. Because one of the other things in my process of doing this is understanding that buyers don't just want to hear new windows. They want to hear new windows, and they want to hear a manufacturer name that they recognize. So even if you have found a great local window person who can install fantastic windows, does a great job, and they look beautiful, while that can absolutely get you there, having a well-known name brand is something that's going to have an impact. I've actually had buyers ask for if it was a specific name brand. What was the brand of window that the home was updated with? And if they don't recognize it, it's not as much of a turn on, regardless of what stats I can show them or anything else I can show them about those windows. Next, window replacement wood, 73% return on investment. Average cost, $18,759. Average resale value, $13,691. Number 5, a grand entrance fiberglass. I'm not even 100% sure what that means. I'm guessing it means an entryway that has columns, those types of things. 70.1% return on investment, average cost $8,358, average resale value $5,855. Let's see here. So, and regionally, the Pacific Division, California, Oregon, Washington, Alaska, and Hawaii saw an average payback of 78.2% for all projects, with 10 projects posting cost recouped levels of at least 90%. The East, North, Central states of Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, Illinois, and Wisconsin, however, saw an average of just 54.9%, with no single project offering a payback of as much as 80 cents on the dollar. And again, this is going to be a case-by-case situation. The numbers like that may turn you off. You may say, well, why would I do any of these things at all then? Well, because remember, these are averages across gigantic regions. And by smartly selecting, picking and choosing the things that are the most in need of attention in your property, my argument is if you're doing it right, if you're doing it smartly, you are going to not only make the money back it cost you to do the work, but you're also going to make more than what it cost you to do the work. And in addition to that, you'll sell faster and for better terms than other properties would at the same price point. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break here for a second, but when we come back, we're going to go ahead and jump in and see an evaluation of some other remodels. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Are you ready to jump in and start your search for your first investment property? Maybe you've decided that it's time to own your own home, or maybe you're ready to sell your home and move on to something new. No matter what your goal is, the Rebel Broker can help. That's right, aside from hosting this show, I am also the owner-broker of Whitelaw & Sons Real Estate Services right here in Silicon Valley. With over 25 years experience serving Silicon Valley, Morgan Hill, San Martin, and Gilroy, I or one of my great agents can help you achieve your goals in real estate. So if you're ready to look into taking that next step towards achieving your real estate goals, point your browser at www.soldbyrobert.com. That's www.soldbyrobert.com and get in touch. Let me show you how I will earn your business and your respect. Again, that's www.soldbyrobert.com, or you can call me at 408-852-0525. California Bureau of Real Estate ID 00984-909.
Welcome back, everyone. We're taking kind of a top 5 view of the highest return on investment stuff in 2017 that you can do to your property. We've run through the list of the highest return on investment projects. Now we're going to go ahead and take a look at the lowest returns on investment. These are improvements that are generally not in demand in the market, according to this article. And on a national scale, the 5 projects with the lowest return on investment in the mid-range cost category are the ones we're going to discuss next. Now, again, even though these are showing up as the lowest return on investment, again, you need to filter this through your reality, your ground truth with your property. I'm interested in this as much because of how this is not going to be a layover template for you to be successful. This is a great way to kind of, I think, calibrate yourself to what some of these costs are that are projected. I think it's a great way for you to get an idea of what people are doing and potentially how they might be doing it wrong that's resulting in poor results for them. Great for you maybe to be mindful of some of these things that maybe you weren't on your list of possible upgrades. But you should not decide not to do some of these because the return on investment on this particular report is low. Again, it's going to totally depend on the reality relating to your property. But with that in mind, let's go ahead and jump in. Now, these are the mid-range costs, or the mid-range updates for properties and for the return on investment. Number 1, bathroom remodel, 64.8% return on investment. The average cost $18,546. The average resale value $12,024. Number 2, a master suite addition, 64.8% return on investment. Average cost $119,533 with an average resale value of $77,506. I'm guessing that this master suite that includes the bathroom. It's got to at that price point, particularly since this is supposed to be a mid-range estimate. Number 3, backyard patio, 54.9% return on investment. Average cost $51,985. Average resale value, $28,546. Number 4, backup power generator, 54.0% return on investment. Average cost, $12,860. Average resale value, $6,940. And again, the only reason I bring up this one is because I have a specific example in my background where I don't think that is realistic. I've mentioned this property a few times. This is a property that was in San Martin. It was an estate. It had over 5 acres, which tends to be folks that are either doing horse things or planning on doing some other, or just having, I guess, a nice big plot of land. But in a scenario like that, there's a strong sense of wanting to be independent in terms of having a piece of property that doesn't necessarily need to be connected to any other resources. So they have wells, they have septic. And in this particular example, this property had tons of solar panels. In fact, commercial grade solar panels that tracked the sun. It was absolutely insane. But it was also melded with a system that had a natural gas backup generator, plenty, and an operator. It didn't have batteries in the system, but it was set up so that you could easily add batteries. When you are looking at a scenario like that, where folks who are likely to buy a property like that are going to be of that kind of mindset, they're going to want to have potentially an option for off-grid living with a backup. Things like this suddenly become more valuable, and I would guess that you would make more than that 54% in that scenario. So if I hadn't had that as a feature of that home, I have no doubt that it would have taken longer to sell the home, because at the point that it did sell, it was a huge deal. That was a very attractive feature to the folks who ended up buying, among a couple of other features, but this was one of the top ones that interested them in terms of what they were looking for out of a home. So again, it needs to be correct for the context of the property. So always keep that in mind as you're going through these. Number 5 on this list, bathroom addition, 53.9% return on investment. Average cost, $43,232. Average resale value, $23,283. And another perfect example of not always true. If you have a 2 or 3 bedroom home with 1 bathroom, well, just by adding that bathroom, there is no question that you will end up increasing the value of that home by more than what it's going to cost you to add a bathroom. Simply because you are now open to a marketplace that is far more populated. There's a much higher demand in that particular segment of a home than if you were to say, an example of where this would be mostly true would be, let's say you've got a 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath, or even better, a 2 bath, and you make it a 3 bath. Yes, I can see where that bathroom addition was not as economically sound. But again, it's about the context of the property. Now, here we go. Now let's go ahead and run through the same numbers, the worst investments, 5 projects with the lowest return on investment in the upscale cost category. Number 1, major kitchen remodel, with a 61.9% return on investment. Average cost, $122,991. Average resale value, $76,149. And I'll tell you, I have seen some amazing kitchen remodels for high-end homes. $2 million, $3 million homes that have had amazing kitchen upgrades. And $122,000 is definitely way up there in the upscale. Have I seen more expensive? Yeah. If you're looking to make a move on a property and trying to get something moved, you're trying to flip it, and you're at that price point. First of all, I'd argue that you need to be very careful about trying to do a flip at the high end. And it depends on where your high end is in your marketplace. There's a certain point where things get a little bit soft and the holding time is too long, and it just doesn't make sense as an investment, particularly since you'll have so much money parked on that property until it sells. There's a sweeter spot that tends to be lower on the price spectrum. So that's another conversation. But doing something with some crazy level of remodel is insane. And here's why. Here's something that a lot of people don't get. If you just go with good cabinets, right, you're probably 99% of the way there. I find that folks that are buying at this upscale level are looking to come in and replace everything anyway. I've had folks buy at that level and homes with literally brand spanking new hardwood flooring, ripped up and replaced with something else. Things as stupid as white carpet, other things, just for whatever reason. They could, so they did. So it's absolutely not worth it in most cases to go for some of these crazy level upgrades that may have appealed to you, but may not have that broad appeal in terms of drawing in buyers and then holding their value. Number 2, Master Suite Edition with a 59.9% return on investment. Average cost $250,687. Average resale value $150,140. 3, bathroom remodel, 59.1%. Remember, this is upscale category. 59.1% return on investment. Average cost $59,979. Average resale value $35,456. Number 4, bathroom addition. And if you're already at the high end, if you're in an upscale home, there's no question we're not talking about a 2-bedroom, 1-bath home where a bathroom addition would make sense. So clearly we're talking about a 4 or 5-bedroom home with 2 or 3 or 4 bathrooms, and for some reason you feel like you need to add another one. The cost here was $81,515 with an average resale of $46,507. And finally, high-end deck addition out of composite materials, 56.4% return on investment. Average cost $39,339. Average resale value $22,171. So that's a rundown there. The 2017 cost versus value report compares across 99 markets the average cost of 29 popular remodeling projects with their average value at resale 1 year later. Again, I'll be including a link to this data in the show notes for today's show, so you can take a look at this yourself. You can go and pin it right down to the region that you live in, so you can get a better insight into what makes sense in your areas. At the very least, this can often serve as an indicator to you on things that you should consider or might want to consider in terms of your remodel or your flip, whatever it is you're doing. But again, as always, right? Never let any of these convince you need to do something or convince you shouldn't. Let it serve as a guide. It's a great guide in terms of, for instance, what would be my number one use for this particular list? Well, I would say, all right, I want to do a minor kitchen remodel, and it's looking like it's going to cost me $30,000 to do that. Well, since the average cost was $20,830, I'm now calibrated to what a minor kitchen remodel should be. So I'd want to know immediately, why am I paying an extra 10 grand compared to the average cost, right? So these are just great milestones for you to put down to say, you know what, this is going to calibrate me to what a lot of people are paying. And I'll tell you what, some of these actually feel a little bit high. The kitchen remodel I'm doing, I'd categorize as relatively minor. I'm not changing the footprint. I'm just installing new cabinets. And there's no way I'm gonna be paying that kind of money for that. I'll be getting good cabinets, but I'm not gonna be once the work is all done and everything is installed. I'm not looking at it being that expensive. It may come up close to that, but I don't think it's gonna be quite that expensive, at least with the numbers that I've been able to break down. All right, folks. As always, it's always my hope that I repay your time spent with me with some good stuff to store away in your brain to help you make good decisions in real estate, or maybe just to get you thinking about things you might not have thought about otherwise. Thanks again for listening. I'll talk to you all next time.